Okay, welcome back to the South Texas Autism. Second video. Last week I talked a little bit about what we went through with our with my youngest son and where we're at now. Um, the next thing I wanted to talk to y'all about is the actual diagnosis and getting hit with that diagnosis. Actually, for us, it really wasn't that bad, like getting hit with the diagnosis, because we didn't know what was going on uh, for a while. I mean, my son had regressed over, I don't know, I guess he started not meeting milestones around 9 months old to a year. Everything up until then was perfect. I mean, he was meeting every milestone, babbling a few words, and then he just, like, I mean, there was nothing out of him. He'd make noises every once in a while, but that was it. Nothing, no words. And so we started getting kind of worried, and my wife, I guess it was like about a year, he was a year old or 15 months, I can't remember. Anyway, she took him back to the pediatrician because the pediatrician wanted to give it a little more time. So she took him back, and I'll never forget that day. She came home and she was like, he thinks it's a neurological problem. And I just kind of lost it. It was like everything, I mean, I knew there was more to it than just something simple. Um, and usually I don't feel that, or I don't think that way. I always hope, I always look for the best, you know? And so, anyway, I lost it, and then we started, uh, we started researching, and initially the doctor thought it may be cerebral palsy. And so we looked into that. We got a brain MRI. They had to sedate him, put him to sleep for a while, and did the MRI at it was actually Driscoll Children's Hospital in Corpus Christi. And so we went with that. And the doctor, I guess it was maybe 4 or 5 days later, called us in and went and talked to him, and he was like, I don't see any signs of that. So by then we were just like, that's when we went to ended up, he wanted us to refer us to a neurologist. We did that. It was way out because they only had 2 in Corpus at the time, maybe 3, but I think it was, I don't remember. But anyway, so we tried to, we waited and waited, and that's when we started seeing the issues with the what we thought could be possibly absence seizures. And so our pediatrician got us into the ER, went to Driscoll. They did EEG and monitored him for 72 hours, I think. And there was nothing that came out of it. And I mean, the whole time the kid's almost like, by then he was almost 2. He was like 18 months, I think, when we did that. And that's when the neurologist came back and said there's nothing wrong. I mean, he could talk, he could barely walk. And so anyway, we once we did that, we couldn't see the other neurologists in the group, so we asked our pediatrician to send us to Austin. That's when went to Especially for Children in Austin and saw Dr. Lindsay Elton, and she was really good. And I mean, just looking at him, talking to us, getting all the facts, and an hour later, we knew he had autism. And now, my extent of autism was the movie Rain Man. I don't know if any of y'all can remember that or have seen that movie. I'm sure a lot of y'all have, but that was my knowledge of autism. So anyway, and it was completely different. It was rough for a long time. I had a hard time accepting it. I mean, like, I didn't, I wasn't to where I denied that something was going on, and and um, didn't like question the diagnosis, so to speak, but just accepting it as how could this happen to our kid, and so anyway, but like I said, and it was several years with all the behavioral stuff, the meltdowns, the lashing out at us, not being able to communicate because he couldn't talk till 5 and a half, and so that was very very hard to just watch that and know like I couldn't do anything to change it other than watch and keep getting him the treatments he needed. And so anyway, but anyone that's going through that now, hang in there. It can get better. Um, and I'm speaking from my perspective. I think that if you get them therapies early, and they do it based on the symptoms and not necessarily diagnosis. I know our doctor was able to do that here in Texas. But if they can do that, a lot of times you can get an early start. And doing that, they start overcoming certain things. I mean, like my son, he went from no words to like back talking us now. So, I mean, and he comes up with his, I mean, he has conversations. And even for several years, we couldn't do that. He was echolalic, and that's where he would just kind of parrot what we were saying. And anyway, he's talking now. I mean, he's still got a long ways to go, and a lot of it's garbled. Not all the time, but certain words are, if he's having sensory overload or having a bad day, the language goes a lot of times. It's not as bad as it used to be, but it still goes. And it's hard, it's hard for him at times to communicate still. But yeah, he's made vast improvements. Sensory processing was another big issue where it, like, if his sensory was out of whack, it set the tone for his day. Like, he wasn't gonna, it's like I was telling y'all one time, I think the last time we talked, without the sensory being taken care of, you might as well forget learning. There was no way he was going to learn at school or whatever. And now that's more in check. And he knows how to self-regulate. We don't see as much stimming. Sometimes we do, but not near like it was. His big thing used to be his stomach. He'd lay on things. He'd smell things. One thing that's never changed is his sense of smell. Like, if we go get any type of food and bring it home, we have to put it in the back of the truck. He just cannot tolerate. He can't tolerate the smell, and he says it's going to make him throw up, and I don't doubt it. And that's just like, his foods. He's eating a lot more different things now than he used to. It was like spaghetti noodles, macaroni and cheese, some fruits, veggies, but it was always the same thing. And one of the things that he's always been craving, a fan of and craved, is like ice cream and milkshakes. So, but we would use a straw on the milkshakes, and that would also help him with his sensory. If he needed that input, that sucking sensation, I guess, to make it, where it'd make it, he'd have to put forth physical effort to drink the shake, and he would, that helped, and so anyway, but yeah, so diagnosis, finding out that it is something, it could be wrong with your child's health is a scary thing. And it's not fun to go through. But like I say, if you're going through that now, just hang in there, because I think things will change as your child gets older. I think some of the stuff, maturity level helps. Self awareness. My son's becoming more and more self aware. And anyway, he's still improving, and that's the main thing. But just don't let it get you down and keep you down. I mean, of course, everyone reacts their own ways, and I'm not saying don't get down, because it's hard not to, but try to hang on to something positive. Mine was always I would just burn into my brain the good moments, because there was so many, like in the beginning, we go 2 or 3 weeks with just pure misery, and he was miserable. There was no communicating. He was young. He couldn't talk, nonverbal. And so it would be rough, and I'd have to hang on to the moments that were good. And that cycle would end. He'd be in a good cycle for 2 or 3 weeks. Everything seemed to be okay as far as like his emotions, and he'd have good days. And then you go back to a cycle where things were crazy, and so we'd have to deal with that. But we got through it, and it took me several years to get out of my funk with the whole thing. It's not something I was real accepting of, in the sense of, it was almost like, how dare this happen to a child, period. And there's always someone who has a worse situation than you do. And I started, like, I saw, and that was another thing that was kind of sad, because we spent so much time in hospitals or whatever, doctor's offices, and you see kids and their parents that were like in very dire straits, and not necessarily just with like autism spectrum disorder, but like some of them at the hospital, you kind of wonder if the child was even going to make it. So anyway, and now it's like anything to do with kids. Like, I've noticed, I can't like watch a video where there's been like a death of a child, or like just something really tragic happens to a child. I can't even watch it anymore. I've gotten a little bit better. I can watch a little bit more than I used to be able to, but yeah, it's crazy how it affects you, and you don't even know it. You don't even realize it. But anyway, yeah, and I'll have next week. I plan to post again, and I'm gonna do my best to do this weekly right now. Hopefully, I can get to where I can do it daily. I got a lot going on with work right now, and so it's kind of difficult to have time to do this, but I definitely want to keep doing it. I'm having fun. I know I got a lot of improving to do. It's kind of weird talking to a camera where people are going to watch, and it's just kind of weird. So, not second nature. But anyway, please like the video, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Until next time, I'm Robert Hutchins. We'll see you later. Boop.